Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the MatchNet podcast. Here we have another episode with my dear husband. Thank you for coming, Robert.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we were supposed to be today at Bay Area for the Glimpse of a Blessed Life workshop, but for how you will describe it, unfortunate.
Yeah, it was unfortunate. There was a sickness at the daycare that our daughter got. She got it very light. Then I got it.
So we were not able to join, and we thought that we will use our time that we were planning to offer it in that community to do some content to share online, so we can still give our offering as a couple. And actually, the topic that we're going to be talking today is a topic that we will be sharing tomorrow, but you won't see this recording until later, so it's okay. But those who will be participating probably will listen a more complete testimony with this recording. Probably it's much longer than what we're going to be able to share at the workshop, and at the same time, we give us the opportunity to practice what we want to share, right? So the topic of today is from couple to a family.
So you're going to hear that and think that we're just talking only about going from being, like 2 people to like 3. But
or
actually,
4.
or 4, or, like
having children.
Right. But actually, as we were talking about it, we realized there's more to it.
Yeah. So we want to start this topic conversation, first of all, sharing that what it means to be a couple and what it means to be a family and what is the difference, right? When you come together after the blessing, you become a couple, right? And you start to making decisions together, and that has a very big impact in your life and how you make decisions. It's a big shift, right? From being an individual to being a couple.
Yeah. You're merging 2 lives, and then those lives are connected to families. So it's actually, you're kind of merging 2 families together. And we were kind of talking that like when you're a couple, you'll see your spouse do something, and it's actually not just, oh, this specific person does things this way. It's likely her whole family does things this way. And I do things a certain way because that's kind of how my family does things. And that's where like this intersection of 2 families come together. And hopefully it's not too rocky, but sometimes it can be a little rocky. And then I guess what we were realizing is that a couple needs to become a family in that they create that identity for themselves. Like, this is our family. There's the 2 merging of our families, but then we've kind of found a way to harmonize those 2, kind of filter out what maybe doesn't need to be there, add things that maybe weren't even existing in both families, and be like, this is our family.
Yeah. So basically, like, it's a shift of identity, right? That it happens when you become a family. That, as you say, right, a couple is 2 individuals coming together and learning how to live together and compromise their 2 different traditions, right? Which it is already a big challenge, and it's a step in the process. Yeah. But becoming a family is creating this identity that this is my family right now, and this is our family's tradition, this is our family vision, this is our family culture. And the truth is, like, all that starts in the couple. The children, of course, as they go older, they will contribute to this process, but the main ones who are actually creating this family is the couple, right? So we want to just mention that because this process can start with children, because children, they force you to create that identity shift. It really is a process, right? That once you have a children, you don't have a choice to just decide what is your traditions and how you're gonna run your family. But it can start earlier as a couple before having children.
Yeah, and then that's even perhaps the ideal way to go about it. is to have those kind of established ahead of time. But it's totally normal to kind of, as we were saying, like that process is expedited, right? The moment of a child is there, because then literally you're a family. Like, it's not just you two. You're not a couple anymore. And it brings these questions, these decisions to the forefront of your mind. I mean, our daughter is now 1. She had her first Christmas, and we had family over for Christmas. And it was a big thing of just deciding, hey, like, what is our tradition about Christmas? What's our tradition around holidays and how we want to do things? So it's like, it already kind of like expedite things a little bit in that way.
Of course, it's better to do that process before, but for us, it really solidified that process once we have Isabella. And for us, having Isabella was what it made us a family. And not only having Isabella, but all what happened in the first year, which is what we're going to be sharing today, right? In order to start the story, we need to start with earlier, right? Like not just when Isabella born, but
right, because that just happened, right? It's like, let's have a kid, and then the kid shows up.
Yeah. But as well, how we got to the decision of having a kid, right?
And that even started before pregnancy. Yeah, exactly. That was big.
So you want to start there?
Well, I mean, I guess I can say that being blessed, was a transition for all the reasons we just kind of explained. And I remember being kind of surprised when Carina was starting to ask me, like, hey, so when should we start a family? And I think at first I interpreted that to mean she wants to have kids now, and she's kind of like, well, what do you think, Robert? And that actually wasn't her question. And it took me a little bit of time to realize that, because I had this like kind of shroud of fear in between this conversation, and then it kind of came between us in having that conversation, because it was just a scary topic for me. I think it was a feeling of like, wow, we just made a big step in our lives to be a couple now, and there's so many things to figure out, like we're not settled yet into a home. That there's, every couple I think will have different kind of determining factors that, like, oh, this needs to be settled before I have kids. Even people have this before they get blessed, right? Like, I need this, this, and this. Sometimes maybe we do that to kind of like protect ourselves, or to prevent the stepping into the unknown, because there's a lot that we can prepare, but there's also a lot that we have to figure out kind of in the moment when we get to that stage, right? So anyways, long story short, I was the one who was more hesitant to have this conversation, and just through talking it through, I remember you just really shared with me, like, I just want us to be able to talk about it, like, I just want us to, like, this to be a conversation on the table, and not just like a one-time conversation. Oh yeah, let's have kids in a year. No, it's like an ongoing thing. Like, how do we feel about it? What's our current stance? Oh, like, I realized that sorry, maybe this is something you can share about. It's like, there were certain things that you realize were connected to the decision about having kids. It's like, well, if we're going to have kids, then we also need to then figure out this. And it kind of, even before that. So what were some of those things for you?
I think like just having our own place. So it took us almost 3 years of marriage. No. We're going to have 4. So 3 years of marriage to get to the point where we were able to rent our own apartment and settle down. Before that, we were living with family or traveling. And getting to that point of stability was really important, right? And at the same time, be able for both of us to be working somehow, having some savings at that time that we have our daughter, right? So I think those were the key like elements from an external point of view. But then from an internal point of view was like, are we feeling ready, right? So for me, having that conversation was as well connected with changing and being able to change our family planning methods, right? I like to use family planning word instead of birth control, because I feel like birth control sounds like you're avoiding a birth, right? But of course, this is a podcast.
As if it's something that you don't want,
exactly.
But it's like it is something you want. So
exactly.
It's like
you're just planning your family, right?
Right.
And we're gonna have a podcast at some point soon about family planning. So I won't get there, but we at some point on our journey we decided to go to the natural family planning, right? But with some help with a basal thermometer that we will talk about it later. But the point is that we decided to use a more natural method, which it worked for us, but at the same time, using a more natural method require me to feel in peace with the possibility of a pregnancy, right? Because although it is, if you do it well, it is pretty accurate, it can happen, right? And the truth is, it can happen with any kind of birth control at some point.
But mentally, it gives you the feeling of kind of peace, because it's like, it's like, oh yeah, this is like a for sure not gonna allow it to happen.
Exactly. So like there are other methods that they allow you to not need to think about it, while the natural method kind of force you to every month think about it, and see like, oh, when I'm fertile, when I'm not fertile, what happened if I'm like something happened and I am pregnant, right?
That reminds me of several times where it was like a pregnancy scare where you're like, am I pregnant?
Yeah, just because my period will come like 1 or 2 days later, and I was like, Robert, I think I'm pregnant.
I learned she became like the boy who cried wolf, and I learned to be like, let's see, like.
Yeah, and as well, like I really wanted to have my health ready, and do some things to be ready, but in my mind, I wanted to have my first child before I'm 25. So that was like, where if we're gonna do that, I need to start to have this conversation when I'm 23 or 22, not at 25, right?
Sure, yeah, because there's a whole build-up, there's a whole things that need to be covered and cleared, like you just mentioned.
Exactly.
Yeah. It makes so much sense.
Back then, it was challenging because every time I bring up the topic, you kind of like, you wanted to avoid it. Right?
I think I just connected the dots between, like, it's almost like having the conversation means we're like at the stage of having kids. I don't think I was able to fully understand and appreciate the amount of kind of conversations and preparation internally and externally that are needed even to get to that place. But all those things, in order for them to happen, there needs to be conversation happening, some kind of level of give and take and communication. So yeah,
so we basically decided to start to look for our baby around,
it was early 2022.
Early 2022, like at the beginning of 2022. By the way, one of the things that inspired me for 2022 was because it was a tiger year. And I really wanted a tiger baby. It's some of the challenges about this year, having a dragon baby. It was some of my dreams, but things are not.
Is that horoscope? No.
It's like a Chinese horoscope.
The Chinese horoscope. That is so unfair that there can be years like tiger and dragon, and then you can have years like rat. That's me. I'm a rat. Imagine like, oh, I'm having a rat baby versus saying I am having a dragon baby. Like, that's not a fair system. No.
Yeah, the problem is next year is a snake. So yeah, we're still talking about this.
I will love whatever baby comes. Snake, rat, pig, doesn't matter.
So either way, then once we decide, we start to basically don't look, or like just look at our fertile days in the month, which was an advantage because usually, like, they tell you that it's very easy to get pregnant, and sometimes it's easy to get pregnant, but sometimes it's not easy to get pregnant, right? And if you don't
because
know,
it's just such a small window of time that actually a woman is fertile.
Exactly.
And like people aren't really aware of it until maybe you see it on a calendar, like, you know, we were able to start to see.
Yeah, and if you don't know your body, you actually don't know when that window is. So an advantage of using the family planning, like natural family method, is that you can start to learn from your body and actually know with a lot of accuracy when is your fertile window, right? So, and especially if you don't use any hormones, that doesn't affect so much. So my point is that it was an advantage, and we were able to get pregnant in the first 3 months that we were trying. And I even remember in your birthday on the April 17th, that was like my gift, right? The pregnancy test.
That's right. Yeah, really early in the morning.
Yeah.
That was quite the surprise.
So it's nice that you actually go through the process of 9 months in pregnancy, because it helps you to prepare, it helps you to get ready, and it helps you mentally, right? For me, one of the surprises of the pregnancy, personally, I know that is not the case for everyone, but personally it was that it was pretty hard, especially the first 3 months with morning sickness, which it's not only mornings, it's like all day sickness. And then in the last trimester with pelvic pain, right? So that was the biggest challenge. Like some people go through pregnancy like great, and there's not any problem, but I personally struggle a lot. So therefore, it helped to make things real as well, right? Like to get things, okay, this is happening, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I remember on the last couple of weeks before Isabella being born, we went to a baby moon as our last time as a couple, and it was a beautiful experience, right? To be together as a couple before becoming a family, right?
Yeah. Because that's the thing with a baby, right? It's like the moment they're here, they're always here.
That's right. So our baby was born in December 2024. In this December 24 of 2022. So that same Christmas year that we decided. And very quickly we realized that things were different.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in the newborn stage, it was very challenging because we were not able to sleep, and we had to get used to like just the baby, right? And of course we had Robert's parents' support, but my parents were in Uruguay, so I missed them a lot, right? And I felt like, oh, if I was in Uruguay, everything will be better because I have so many people that can support me, especially the woman like that feels that they need of support during that time, right?
So you're kind of feeling some isolation.
Yeah, and yeah, it was a very challenging period, very beautiful and very challenging. But then the baby became the center of everything, right? How was for you that period?
Those early stages?
Yeah.
I mean, looking back now, it seems really beautiful. And you know, sometimes even now we'll like look back on photos at that time and like it's like, wow, you know, she's definitely gotten cuter, but she was still very cute at that time for sure. I remember we would talk about it. It's like it's very easy to kind of like turn off your emotions and kind of be a little numb for the sake of being able to kind of like work together. And that was kind of like a point I was reflecting on a little bit, is like if before having a baby you thought you had good teamwork skills with your couple, this is where it's really brought to the test, you know, because this is the real time you really have to work together, you know. Like I think you know, especially as men, like it's not just the woman's responsibility just to take care of the baby, you know, as the mother. It's like there's so many things that we can do as husbands and then as fathers as well to support and take a really active role, to take ownership. And that was, I think, a conversation that needed to be had. And I think we had it in pregnancy a little bit too, you know. Preparing for as much as you can is great. But I think it's just, for me, what really helped is like just trying to bring that like willingness in the moment. Like, okay, whatever's going to be needed, I want to try to make that possible. But one thing I just remember is that feeling a little bit like the need to kind of like disconnect a little bit from the emotions because it was challenging, you know. And sometimes you might say something to me in a way that was very like sharp and demanding, and I remember it was kind of a peaceful time because I just knew like if I let that touch me, there's no space for us to like get into that, to work that out, sort of, you know. But it was also a time where I knew like I was kind of conscious that like we got to be careful, you know. It's like, because if you exist in that space for too long where you're kind of like not really talking about things, you're not really like expressing things between yourselves, it can have a negative effect where suddenly you're exploding, where it's suddenly too much, and or it just your kind of disconnect is not great. So that was one thing that I was grateful for, that in the beginning, despite all that I just said, I think we still tried to kind of intentionally make sure our time was between ourselves was still there, you know. I was really like happily surprised that even in the like weeks after giving birth, you expressed that like, hey, like I want to be intimate with you, you know. Like that was something that I tried not to have any expectation for, because it's like we have a new kid coming with all these new responsibilities, lack of sleep, all this, and your body just went through something huge. And there's a whole recovery and healing period. But it's really beautiful that from you, your heart was still like, hey, like I want to connect with you. I want to. And I think that goes a lot to you and your intentionality about it, that you didn't want to kind of like let our couple be kind of forgotten because of the kid. It's like the kid needed all of our love and all of our heart and all of our attention, but it didn't mean that connection between us had to be 100% severed, you know. And I don't know, I think that said a lot about your commitment to our relationship.
Yeah, which, by the way, we had to learn different ways to connect intimate, because right. I personally have a pterygium that didn't open, and so we were not able to have intercourse, right? So,
and that was a little challenging because the doctors give you a certain expectation, you know. And I think they tried to make it generous, kind of like, oh yeah, it'll take this amount of time, and that already felt like kind of long. But it's like, okay, you know, we can make it till there. And then realizing that, oh, like the healing process has not fully completed, you know.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, and then it's like, but I think there came a point, it's like, well, how long is this gonna be, you know?
Yeah, like, I mean, for us it took us 5 months.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean we were like, we had to prioritize intimacy, but in different ways. And my body changed completely of what it was before. So the things that it used to work, it didn't work anymore. So it was pretty challenging because we were tired, we were in survival mode, we want the connection, but we didn't know how to get that connection anymore.
We had to relearn it.
Yeah. So I guess it's comparable to when you start.
Oh, you know,
like it felt very similar to the first years of marriage.
That's true.
Yeah, because it's almost like starting from zero. Yeah.
Starting from zero a second time, though. So we had the benefit of
that's true. But with less time. I mean, if before it took us some time to know that we had to prioritize intimacy. With a baby, you really need to make a lot of intentional effort and intentional decision in order to make that a priority, because the baby is your priority now. And I was lucky to know that you were pretty present on the care of Isabella, because I know that some parents, like the mother, take mostly that role, and then the mother, there's a disconnection between the father and the mother, right? So I was lucky that for you, Isabella, as well, was a priority, but at the same time, we need to both make the intentional effort to keep our couple as a priority, and at the same time, so that's like intimacy, but there's a change of identity that happens as well when you become a parent. And there's a word called matrense, which is like adolescence, but for a mother, right? Like matrenses, the process from woman to mother. Right. And I think it happens to father as well, right? But there's not a word exactly. But it actually, your brain changes after you become parents. And that whole thing, it really impacts how you see the world and who you are as a person. So that change of identity has an important impact in everything that you do, but in your couple as well. Right. And so not only you had to relearn intimacy, but now you had to relearn who each person is. Right. And the first 3 months you're in survival mode, basically. And then when things start to get better, we made the decision of traveling. Right. So as I mentioned before, I felt like I really needed to be connected with my family back in Uruguay, and like we're not able to come, so we all went for several months, right? With Isabella 3 months, and we actually even took all our stuff out of our apartment, so we don't even need to pay rent. And the
idea was that after this period of being in Uruguay and a little bit of traveling, we'd come back to Canada and find a new place.
Exactly. Yeah. So for me, the experience of traveling was reconnecting, not traveling for traveling, but reconnecting to my family. It was really important, especially because Isabella was the first granddaughter for my parents and the first great-granddaughter for my aunt, the first...
great-granddaughter for your grandma.
The great-granddaughter for my grandma, the first baby in the whole family, right? Since my youngest cousin was born, right? And we wanted to connect with my family from Brazil as well. Like having Isabella really made us really proud, and we wanted I really want everyone to know her, like you had to know her. She's so special.
You have to know her. She's beautiful.
And it was very beautiful. But at the same time, it was it was very beautiful. We were able to reconnect with that side of the family, and for me to feel complete, like, okay, now people who I love knows me in this new stage. But at the same time, I had this concept that if I was there in Uruguay, everything will be much better, right? Like people will be able to like take care of me, or like things we can do teamwork, and I can still work, and etc., etc. And yes, it was true. I mean, I'm really grateful because living with my parents, I was able to go back working at that time with High Noon. But didn't mean that it was still a challenge. It was still a challenge, and my family my family of origin works without a routine. They're not really good with routines. And what we needed like, and what Isabella needed was a routine. And that was a challenge to accommodate, right?
Well, it's like your parents just got used to being empty nesters and kind of having their, like, they have a routine in some regard, but it was very like different from what a family needs with a young baby.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's kind of a, I guess you're getting into like a little bit the friction or a little bit the clash that came between our kind of two different ways of living.
Yeah, and just it was really healing for me to be able to do that process, seeing it with my like experience it, to realize who is my family now, right? And getting to a point where the only people I wanted to be with, like not forever, that would be bad, right? But like, oh, my family is where Robert and Isabella is. That's my family now, you know? And then we need to build our own home routine. And we got to the point of deciding to come 1 month earlier than what we were planning to Canada. And I mean, it was challenging as well, because even when we came back to Canada, we had to find a home. So we took that month was taken to find the place to live, which was another stress to do it. But we did it, right?
Yeah. But as you say, it's like the decision to come earlier did stem from that feeling of like, we're ready to get settled as just our family. And because it's going to take time to get settled, let's go a little bit earlier and do those things. Place. We actually survived a year living without a car before then. So, but this time, you know, with the baby for sure, we needed a vehicle, and finding a vehicle. Yeah, that was
empty our bank account.
Whole adventure.
Yeah. Yeah, which, by the way, was another point of understanding that having a family, of course, we knew that like you need to have more expenses, but as well, just learning that what will be comfortable for us as a family, and finance and making money became more relevant after having our daughter, right? Because before, of course, it was important, but we were living with very little. We didn't need much, and of course, you can live with very little, even with a baby. But at the same time, the lifestyle that we felt comfortable with a baby was a lifestyle that it required us to increase our salary, right, or step up in our career, and that as well brought up a lot of conversations to have about finance, right?
Sure. Oh, yeah. If I may, one more thing that I think was part of that desire to come and like have our home, I think you were saying is like partly it was because like, oh yeah, we'd spent a lot of time with your parents, your community, your family, and like we it was kind of like coming to the conclusion like I really just want to spend time and start building our life together. But I think it was also because we although we were mostly in your parents' house, as you said, we went to Brazil, and then actually we went to, you know, a few other places after that, and it was like a 3-week period altogether, or 4 weeks.
Yeah, 3 to 4 weeks.
3 to 4 week period where I just remember everything was blended. Our work life, our life with Isabella, our couple life, like am I missing anything else? Friendship, even sometimes. Like it all became just so intertwined and connected together that I just remember as well, like really feeling, oh yeah, we need to have like a home base for us where we can just be settled. And even I think when we came to find our home here, it was still kind of a conversation that needed to be had of like, how do we really make sure to kind of honor and protect our home, which is not just a physical place. It's like it's an internal environment. It's our connection. And truth is, yeah, there's so many things that start to kind of like to pull at it, test it, financial situation is one for sure. Jobs and like what those require is another one for sure. Just kind of like our own like personal interest and stuff can sometimes feel to be like something that kind of tests that. But anyways, yeah, that was something I just wanted to add.
Yeah, and I mean, we learned from that experience. We really learned that we needed separate space and times, right? Times to be fully present with Isabella, because before our attention was divided, right? Like half of our work, half Isabella, half like family, right? Like it was
like at the same time.
At
right?
the same time,
like
everything was at the same time. But then
there'd be moments where you can focus a little bit, but it's like likely not sufficient, right? Because it's like the next moment suddenly there's something else you have to deal with Isabella, and on some level that's unavoidable, I guess, right? But to the level that we were doing it was not sustainable or good.
Yeah, so that made us the decision of, well, it was even before, but we took two controversial decisions in order to start building our life and our routine, and our structure, exactly. And the first one was gentle sleep training for Isabella to have her own routine to sleep. Actually, that was decision came earlier, and it forced us to create a routine, because as Isabella needed a routine, we understood that we needed that routine, and our routine was connected with that, right? So as we put Isabella in a routine and learning how she was able to sleep, and allowing her to learn how to sleep too, right? Allow us some certain structure that we were able to follow or start with, right? And then the second decision.
Do you want to say maybe a little more why that was important to us? I think,
sure.
Well, one aspect of like helping her to have this kind of structured approach to sleep is that we really wanted to make sure we had the time together. That when she was sleeping, and we'd put her to bed, we could still have those, couple hours. And that's kind of what it's like now, like we put her to sleep and we still have 2-3 hours, do stuff that we need, but then like make sure to prioritize having that time to connect between ourselves. So there's something else I guess I just wanted to mention.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, that decision was really hard because there's so many things against that, to say that they talk against that, right? And we decided that we will prioritize what it makes us better person and better parents, and therefore be for Isabella in a better state, right?
It's kind of like you have to really make sure you're taken care of so that you can be there for your child as much as you can, right? Like to your best capacity.
The other decision was for me to work, right, as a mom, and therefore understanding through the first months that it doesn't work to, even if you work online, it doesn't work to work
I wouldn't say it doesn't work. It's just
very stressful.
It's difficult. Yeah.
It's difficult, and you're not good in either. You're not a good, you're not present 100% for your child in that moment, and at the same time, you're not 100% present for your work at that moment, right?
It's especially like that's the constant internal dialogue. It's like, I'm not doing great in either 100%.
Especially after they become like 4 months and they need more like playing time, or at the beginning they just sleep and eat, right? But then afterwards
it gets longer wake windows,
and it gets a little bit harder. Luckily we were traveling in a lot of that, so she was able to join us in that process. But definitely by the time I took this role as a Blessing Ministry Director in September, Isabella was old enough that I could not do both at the same time. And luckily you were part-time, so we were able to take care of her, but we decided that we will sign her up for daycare. which is another controversial or very guilty. Like it brings a lot of guilt and shame because, and yeah, it means that she's been taking care of other people. Of course, we did our research and we tried to find the best place, right? Which means as well spending money, right? And it has its challenges, right? And it was really challenging to get in peace with that decision. But currently, we know that is the best thing for her and for us.
Yeah. Well, maybe I can just say, like, yeah, when there was that kind of like 2-3 month period where you were working full time, and I was just in a situation where I could work part time, and I was kind of primarily taking care of Isabel during the day. I remember it was oftentimes where like I put her to sleep and then I'm like rushing to work, you know, to kind of do stuff in that hour, and it really can like sometimes feel like, oh, like I gotta just get through this period of time and then I can do what I need to do. And again, I guess it's like all those sort of things are possible and people do this, you know, they make it work for them in the circumstances. But yeah, as you were saying, like kind of like long term, we knew that this is not gonna be sustainable for family. But at the same time, it's something that we want to have those kind of clear separations that, hey, this is our work time. We're gonna be able to focus 100%. And then when Isabel's home, we want to focus 100% with her, really be able to be present with her. And yeah, I'd say the results have been nice to do that, you know? Yeah. It really kind of makes us excited for when she comes home. And I would also, like, this is something that you and I talked about not too long ago, is that my experience of like dropping Isabella off was that like it kind of added this like tone to my workday and to the things that I had to do. Was like, okay, like I gotta make this worth it, you know, like having Isabella be in a place that's she's safe, she's being taken care of, but is it 100% ideal? Maybe not, but it's like, you know, through the different changes that she needs to kind of go through there, you know, it's kind of like this feeling like, yeah, you got to make it worth it, you know. So that was, I felt somewhat of an added benefit, you know. Kind of brought a further intentionality to that time when she was at daycare, and then also then of course the intentionality of when she came home. It's like she's home, time to spend time with her.
Yeah, I mean, I personally found me working, and especially working in the Providence, right, and being taking a leadership position, it's very gratifying, gratifying, and it makes me feel like it allowed me to feel as a person again, like as an individual again, and finding my own self again, right? And I just feel deeply that God needs me here, right? But of course, God needs me with my daughter too. So I don't. The thing is, like, for her to spend 6 hours, and this is our decision, right? Like for her to spend 6 hours at daycare, it doesn't mean that I stop being her mom, you know. And our relationship is actually really deep and still very, very important for me. Having that separation, having those 6-8 hours where,
well, and when she's not sick and back at home,
yeah, which that's the other part of the care. They get sick and then we need to figure it out. It's life and it gets very stressful. We got sick too. Yeah, but having those 8 hours where we're separated, right? It of course that doesn't mean that I'm not her mom anymore, right?
Sure. Yeah, it's not like you forget that she's in your life.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that those 4 or 5 hours plus weekends that we spend together are actually very important for our relationship, right? So I don't know if I'm gonna choose to go through the same process with every single kid that we're gonna have in the future. So I don't know. I'm not saying that this is exactly the formula that everyone else has to do, but it just opened the possibility that for people that women, right, that decide that they will like to become a mom, but at the same time continue the career. There's a choice, there's a option there that they could do. It's not about the choice itself, it's about how you make the decision, right? And I had a very deep experience with Isabella this weekend, where I had to travel for to a leaders meeting in New York.
You're basically gone for like a week.
I was gone for a week almost, and then I'm gonna need to travel for Korea soon. But yeah, I when I came back, well, before even before, she was kind of like crying, kind of fussy, right? Like crying, but you can easily distract her with something for a couple of minutes, and then being again and wanted to be with me. We were in the process as well of stopping breastfeeding, so that was impacting her. And
a connection with you,
and
right?
that connection with me, right? And I was able to feel it, and I just allow her to feel her emotions, and accept her uncomfortable emotions toward what she was living, or missing me, or wanted to breastfeed, or wanted to, like, she really didn't know how to connect with me anymore, right? Because of all that. And I was just there. And for a whole hour, she was crying, wanted to be with me, but not wanted to be with me, and wanted to be with me, and not wanted to be with me. And I was just there, like, and luckily, I wasn't feeling guilty at that time. It was just a feeling of, oh, you're feeling bad. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel what you're feeling, And I'm here for you, so you don't need to feel this alone. Let's feel it together, And it was after that hour that if someone see it from outside, it's like, oh my goodness, what is going on here, right? But after that hour, she felt so much relief, and that emotion wasn't there anymore. And she, for first time, was able to be calm and put her hair in my chest, which before she was so anxious that she could not do that, right? And it was a very beautiful experience that it reminded me of the concept that it's not the thing that traumatizes the babies or the kids, but it's being alone with the feeling about it, right? So I believe that and I mean, I'm sharing, my daughter is 1 year old. We don't know what it's like. I cannot speak as an expert, and I don't know if this is like,
your experience.
It's just my experience of being in peace with her being uncomfortable with some decisions or some circumstances of her life, and being okay with that, and just for my commitment to be with her when she needs to process those emotions, and allowing her to learn how to cope, right? Because the truth is, we cannot make the life of our children perfect. There's always going to be something sooner or later that it's going to be uncomfortable, or it's going to bring them discomfort, right?
Yeah, even just simply having a desire for something that can't be fulfilled. Right?
Yeah, right? And so more than trying to make the life of our children perfect is about allowing them, help them to learn how to process those emotions, so they don't get stuck with those emotions. Trauma is getting stuck and don't process those emotions that are happening, right? This week, I had to rebuild that connection again. It's something that it's not only one time. It's something that periodically I need to like have that space for her, where I'm completely for her, and like where she can tell me in her crying language what is she feeling, right?
Crying language, body language.
Because she cannot speak yet.
Yeah. Well, that is so deep, and I think it goes into this area that like couple to family, but then there's like levels to your family. Like your family needs to continuously grow and evolve, and not grow and like get bigger, but like deepen, right? Deepen those relationships. I remember when you were telling me this, it was just recently we were talking about this, and to be honest, for me, it feels very like, oh wow, like we're entering this newer stage where our daughter is no longer this girl who, okay, we hit the routine with her, you know, she does this, we do this, and we kind of know what to expect, you know. But it's like the structure and routine should continue, but it's like understanding that as Isabella's growing, I mean, this is what I'm kind of like realizing from this, and I haven't quite maybe fully processed it, but it's just like we need to be able, as you say, meet Isabella where she's at currently, you know, and like take care of her, not just physically, but like emotionally too, and like mentally. And so it's like, it's constantly, I think, a child asks of you to be more in one sense, you know. As a parent, it's not just simply, okay, like I checked off the boxes. She's fed, she slept, and that might have been how you can relate with your child in the early days, right? Is that, oh yeah, is her diaper changed? Has she eaten? Has she slept? Okay, then she's good, you know. But it's like, you know, at least that's just for me, and I think that's what's special about this journey from couple to parent. It's like, I think that's like the aspect of developing this new realm of heart, right? This realm heart of parent. One other thought that I had with your sharing is that, like, similarly, that, you know, you need to make that time. We need to make that time as a couple to connect. It's like we need to make that time to connect with our child, you know, and that's not just something that default happens. It's like what you're saying is like that takes that intentional time, and sometimes it's not just happy playing together. You know, we would love that, right? But sometimes it's more this, a little bit more of the harder emotional work. Yeah. And you go through that as a couple too, where you have to talk through those harder things, right? Express those things. So
there's a lot of pressure about the impact that parents have in the children, right? Like we see in our own childhood, and our generation is very aware of that. So they want to be perfect. They don't want to create any trauma. And if the typical thing that we hear from our generation is, if I'm gonna bring a child to the world, I may as well make their life perfect, right?
Yeah.
That I don't want to make that hard. That why I will bring our child to this hard life, right? Because we have,
and that's what even stops some people from having kids, because it's like, well, why would I bring them? Because like my life is kind of a mess, and also the world is kind of a mess. So it's a kind of a desire to protect your future kids from that. You don't want to, right?
Exactly. And something that we need to understand when we decide to have children is that we are not deciding to have your own children. You are deciding to have the children of God. And like for us, Isabella, for everyone's children, those are not your children. Those are the children of God. Therefore, we need to make our best to be their guardians and protectors of her. But at the same time, we have to trust wholeheartedly that God is taking care of her. That God is guiding her life, you know?
And I guess guiding us to do those things.
And guiding us as well. And of course, I'm talking about Isabella, but any other children, right? So when we think about having children, when to have children, how many children to have, don't make it about yourself only. You know? It's about God, because it's God's children. And we don't know what is God's plan for this being that needs you to bring to the world, right? We're just channel of God.
Yeah. If you think, I guess, of your own individual life right now, like the roles you're taking on in your life, the people you've impacted, your parents, when you were born a little baby, they probably had so much bright hope for you, but they couldn't 100% imagine the person you will become. And we haven't even fully finished that, right? Like we have still a whole life ahead of us. And so, yeah, that's such a deep point that, you know, there's this person could play such an important role in God's kind of vision for the world, you know. I guess you could say providence, right? But just like, this person is like what is needed to kind of express and relate with that one part of God's heart that would never be able to be expressed, related with, unless that person was there. That's like the deep significance that's there, right? For each person, it's like that's a part of God's heart. And God wants his whole heart, his whole love to be in this world, and it needs to come out through all these amazing children, you know?
Yeah. So that's just a point about how to make the decision of having children, and as well, like the taking out the pressure that everything has to be perfect, and I had to be perfect, right? Yeah. So we're talking so long, and we need to kind of conclude. So, what is our life now? Like how things look like for us, where we are at now, right?
One thing that we are excited about, for example, is to spend more time in the mountains, spend more time in nature together as a family, especially as Isabella starts to be able to walk. It's going to be exciting to explore the outdoors in that new lens, sort of in that new way. What would you add to this question of where we're at?
As a couple, we are able to spend time together, but then at the same time, we are going through the process of personally understand each other again and who we are now. So as much as we need to spend time together, we need to prioritize spending time with ourselves.
Very true.
So like even this travel allow you to spend time with yourself and allow me to spend time with myself, which wasn't something that it was before, and actually was very clarifying for us, right, as a person. And then understanding, like, we always talk about prioritizing our couple and prioritizing our family, but something that we didn't mention is that you need to prioritize yourself.
Oh, there we go.
And you need to prioritize like your own well-being as a person, because that impacts your couple and that impacts your family, right? Yeah. So for example, I start back to work out when it's after Isabella goes to sleep. I work out for an hour, and then going to a gym or place where I can have that accountability, that support, and then I can come back home, and then we can spend time together, right? You sometimes give me some time in the weekend for me to take a bath, meditate, have some time for myself, and then you have your own time. We have a house that allows the spaces to be separated, right?
Bit, yeah.
All that of course costs money, but then it encourage us to keep working, right? You're looking for a new job, and us as a couple, we are I don't think we're perfect, but we are reconnecting again, and we are trying to meet each other again, right?
It's like you never get to a place where it's just like one thing is dropped and then another. So I guess it's kind of just like we're going through always this process of like, if the line that we want to walk is like the ideal life where everything is in balance, everything's in harmony with ourselves, with our couple, it's a fine line. It's hard to walk. It's like walking a line on the top of a hill of sand. So it's so easy to like just drift down, and sometimes we're walking along the edge for some time, but it's like this constant process. I guess you mentioned like we're not perfect, we're working on it, but I think that the way I would kind of describe that or picture that, is like that, like give it an analogy almost. It's like it's like doing that, both of us walking in the line, holding hands together. Isabella maybe between us,
Yeah, totally.
No.
Totally. And of course, like things might have looked much easier now than what it looked a year ago. But at the same time, we're really getting ready for the next one. Like that doesn't mean that it's gonna come right away. But if we're thinking about it, we're talking about it, we're like starting to think about the preparations that we need to keep growing our family, right? So those, of course, once you have a new baby, like everything, like again, you had to restart again as a new family because it really changes the dynamic, right? So I hope
just
you can
one new person,
one more person that can change everything. So it's like, of course, once we have the more children we have, I think the more wisdom we're gonna have developed and more we can be able to share. but that's where we are now. And that was our experience of our first year from couple to family. And we have still much more to learn, but we wanted to share it as it's fresh now, because we can share it later, but as it's fresh now, we can share it so it's more real and it's more present for us as well, and we can share like the honest feelings from the experience. So I think we're closing here a very long one. I don't know how we're gonna be able to talk about it tomorrow, but thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure to have you here, and
it was nice to honestly revisit some of those things. So
yeah,
we're grateful we have that opportunity to share, and definitely hope that you were able to give you something to think about, or to, you know, perhaps give you hope as well, if maybe you're in a darker time this moment. You know, life will continue to always move forward as long as you continue to like have your eyes on, you know, the vision of what you want, you know, individually, as a couple, as a family.
Totally. So with that, thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.